Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm Alexander Romero from the Lake Newport team. Also one of the RA board members, RSTA board members for Lake Newport, and in charge of the Rules Committee, chairman of the Rules Committee. So Blake asked me to join tonight, and Sumi, I think, also, in order to share with you some of the changes to the rules in the last year, so that you would all be familiar. We'd all kind of talk about it now. You can ask any questions you have. But let's go ahead and we'll get started. This will probably take about 20 minutes. So first, I'll go ahead and go through the Rules Committee members, the officials training dates, recommended officials placement, and the swim up rule changes. So for some context, the Rules Committee is a part of the RSTA board, and matters are referred to us with regards to the official rules of swim. In most cases, we default to the USAT or USA swimming regulations, but in some cases for our league, we make changes. And we make changes, then we publish those in the book. So any big rules issue that comes up to the committee, then we discuss it. Everybody from every pool has got a representative. And so I'm the committee chair from Lake Newport, but then we've also got Andrew, who's in the room, Nancy Kazanis from North Hills, Alyssa Harriet from Lake Audubon, Charles Lee, Lou, Debbie, and Stephen Thompson. So those are the official representatives to the board that discuss any potential rules changes that will affect all of you and all the swimmers that are in the league. If you have any questions, you could always email rulescom@rsta.org. One thing that we tested out last year, and this is worth mentioning for this year, is that the placement of the officials on the pool deck. This is a visual of Lake Newport pool, but what you can see is that we started placing 4 officials at every meet, and of those 4 officials, one goes at one end or two at this end and 2 at that end. The reason for this was to get a more even approach to officiating, right? Because if you think about it, all the pools have got different configurations. And in those configurations, there's challenges with actually officiating. So here on Lake Newport, sure, somebody could walk up and back and forth, but over here, they can't, right? So then you're just going to get an official that kind of walks back and forth over here. The goal of this positioning of the officials is that each official covers 25% of the pool, okay? And that way, they do that at every pool. Every pool can accept that type of a configuration, which means that every pool, all the meets, are all officiated in the same manner. Does that mean that it's possible to miss something in the middle? Sure. But at the same time, everybody ideally would miss it across the entire league, so it becomes more even and equitable, right? So the goal is not necessarily perfect officiating. We'd probably have to add a whole bunch of officials in order to do that. Instead, the goal is to make it more even officiating. Because what happens at the board level is that when it's uneven officiating across the league, then we get complaints. So we're looking at ways to make sure that it's even across the league. Let's see. Oh, another question that comes up here is about who gets priority, the officials or the timers or the swimmers. Obviously, the swimmer gets the first priority. But in most cases, it should just be using common sense, right? Hopefully the officials are not in some way pushing other people out of the way. They should just use common sense at the end of the pools. And then at the end of the day, the referee has the final say on placement. And this is usually the case if there's insufficient officials, right? So if for some reason an official doesn't show, gets sick, whatever it may be, and there's only 3 officials, does the meet still go on? Of course it still goes on. And then just as an example, here's a couple other pools, Autumnwood Pool, Lake Audubon. You can see for all the different pools, you'd be able to have this 1, 2, 3, 4 configuration. Okay? Okay. Now, the swim up rule. Okay. So, for quick context, the swim up rule is actually, it's not necessary, it doesn't come into issue that often in terms of issues with how it's used. So for the context of this discussion, I want to make sure that you understand that this is not necessarily a problem all the time, every meet. It only actually came up in the past as a problem about once a year, once a season, in how the rule was interpreted. So it is open to interpretation, and there has been different uses by teams over the years. This is actually the original swim up rule. A swimmer may swim up only in team relay events, provided no swimmer from that age group is displaced or otherwise denied participation. Any swimmer who swims up in one relay may still swim with his or her age group relay. However, the maximum 2 relays per dual meet still applies. So this is in the construction of relays, right? And typically that would be for age group relays and then swimming people up. All right. So an issue was brought to the board last year, then to the Rules Committee. It was sent to the Rules Committee for review. And it was a difference in interpretation between 2 different teams with regards to how the construction of relays should take place. And what's very important, and the point that I want to make here, is that both teams are right. Okay? So it came to the committee. We spent hours and hours and hours discussing it. And we said, you know what? The rule does have the ability to interpret it one way or to interpret it the other way, right? And so we said my videographer is dancing. So was something good I said, or are you just having fun over there? No. So we said, okay, now because this has come up last year, and it has actually come up in the past, and we have said both ways are okay, there was also agreement from the committee that, you know what, let's see if we can take a crack at clarifying the rule to make it so it's less open to interpretation and more in line with whatever the league wants, whatever the league wants. Okay, so we went ahead and we said, okay, we're going to go ahead and work on clarifying it. All right. So now, in order to clarify it, you actually have to kind of go many levels kind of deep in terms of whatever rule we agree on affects all of you. It affects over 1,000 swimmers. It makes a big impact. So we don't want to change rules haphazardly because they're a pain. We got to explain them over here. And they can definitely have negative consequences, if not, or unintended negative consequences. So we said the purpose is really to clarify its original intent. What does that mean? What was the original intent of the rule? Well, we said as a league, in general, we want kids to compete in their own age groups. Hence, we have age group heats. So we say, first and foremost, kids should go ahead and compete, and they should compete in their age groups, which is why we don't have like one big heat, and then anybody can swim in it. You have the 8, 9s, 10, 11s, etc. Next, we said, as a league, we also want kids to swim where it's possible and makes sense. So this is where it gets to be up for a little bit of interpretation, right? So we said here, if we look historically, we have a significant number of relay teams that would not be able to compete if we stuck hard and fast to Principle 1. So if we said, for relays, we're only going to let age group swimmers swim. So if we, as a league, said that's it, no exceptions, then we'd have a lot less people swimming because of the demographics of different teams, because of people who are on vacation, people who don't show, swimmers who don't show, you name it, the list goes on and on. So we didn't want that. So we said then, so the rule was created a while ago so that more kids could swim and compete while generally sticking to that principle number 1. It's an exception because, again, without swim-ups, we'd have a lot less relay teams in dual meets. Wouldn't be a lot of fun to have a whole bunch of empty relays in a competitive meet. So that's the background. Now, what is the new rule? Okay, the new rule clarifies it more in terms of how relays can actually be constructed. So essentially, I'm going to read it out loud here. In a dual meet, if an age group relay has insufficient age group swimmers to field a relay team, they may swim up a younger swimmer in order to create an eligible relay or teams for competition, so long as no age group swimmer is denied participation and they adhere to the following structure. All right? So what this means is if you have 4 age group swimmers, you get 1 relay. If you have 5 age group swimmers, you can then do 2 relays, right? If you have 7 age group swimmers, right, then you can do how many? 2. Is that right? 2. double checking. Make sure you guys pay attention. Okay. And 8 and 9 and so forth and so on. You get the general pattern, right? So the next big question that comes up is, all right, well, how can we go ahead? Are there any limitations on constructing those relays in terms of by swimmer capabilities or things like that? And here, relay teams may be constructed without regard to individual swimmer classification. So assuming you have swim-ups in there, then you can go ahead and construct those relays however you want them to be constructed. And that's the same as it always has been. We didn't change that rule, that part of it. You've always been able to construct the relays with whatever swimmer classifications you want. An important change that we made here is actually, in the prior rule, the word was denied or displaced, okay? And the word displaced actually came up for interpretation. And so that's why we took the word displaced out, and we have now changed that to denied participation. Okay, so what does denied participation mean? It means that if you've got, let's say, 4 age group swimmers, right? You as coaches want to encourage all 4 of them to swim. They should all want to swim, okay? If there's some extenuating circumstance by which they have just ate a bad donut and they feel like they're going to throw up in the pool, or they've hurt themselves, or some other reason that they're like, I don't feel well enough to swim, I do not feel comfortable swimming for some reason, I don't feel safe in the water, something like that, then you can substitute in and swim somebody up to complete the relay. But only in those cases where you've encouraged them as much as you can that they should go ahead and swim, and for some personal reason they decide they do not want to. Okay, so a couple of important points and then I'll take some questions. That part is really important. The no age group swimmer is denied participation. Again, just reiterating that point. So you can't deny an eligible swimmer the opportunity to participate and substitute with a younger age swimmer, and you want to do everything you can to encourage that swimmer to participate. The other part, which I mentioned, you can go ahead and construct those teams as you like. And then the other part, just to mention actually, is there's no swim-ups in All-Stars. So that's always been the case, but there was a couple questions about when this came up. What not to do. All right, you're going to be my test subject, right? Here, right? Are you sure you really want to swim? You probably don't want to swim in this relay, right? That is what not to do. Do not do that with any swimmer. If you do, you will be brought before the board and asked why you would do such a terrible thing. Like, we want to encourage all swimmers, right? So definitely, you don't want to dissuade anybody from swimming, okay? Now, when a swimmer should not swim in their age group, right, is like, something like that happens. Yeah. This is mostly for effect, right? And the effect here is there's a legitimate reason. All right, maybe that was too brutal of a picture, I don't know. In this case, there's a pretty clear reason that the swimmer does not want to swim, right? They're hurt. In this case, a soccer player, but you get the idea, right? It's got to be a good reason. Otherwise, you would be considered denying them participation. That's what we don't want to do. The last thing we want to do is try to construct a relay and have it be, and at some point we push some swimmer aside, they don't get to swim. That's not good. All right, question. That's fine. It's up to you. You have to make the judgment. If you can't get them to swim, like they don't want to swim, then you can backfill.
You're allowed to swim on that?
Yep. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to see that as being like a habit, right? It should be extenuating circumstances, like the soccer player. Going once, swim up rule going twice. All right, 3 times. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you.